Cyprus or Dubai for UK tax residents. This is the second video where we will dive into more detail comparing the two jurisdictions. This is Kyriakos Tramundanellis, a UK chartered accountant and practicing auditor in the UAE and in Cyprus. So let's dive in to see the main difference between these two jurisdictions. Corporation tax. Corporation tax in Cyprus is 12.5% with 0% dividend tax, whilst in the UAE, the corporation tax is 9% if your profit exceeds 375,000 AED. In other words, if you're a small micro company, micro business, you might end up not having to pay any taxes in the UAE. VAT in Cyprus has many brackets. The most common is the 19%, whilst in the UAE, the most common VAT bracket is 5%. Of course, there are services and exports of goods which are exempted from VAT. You can contact us for more guidance on VAT, which is a very specialized manner. Now, what about tax residency and personal income tax? Cyprus has personal income tax for taxable profits exceeding 19,500 at 20%, 25%, 30%, and 35% for taxable income more than 60,000. On the other hand, in the UAE, salary income is entirely tax-free. This is a culture here in the Gulf region and in the whole UAE. You are not meant to be paying taxes on your work, on the salary you receive from your hard-earning work, and this is something that is not going to change in the near future. So depending on the circumstances of each trader, Dubai might be more favorable than Cyprus. Cyprus has the non-dom for the zero dividend tax, whilst as we said, in Dubai there is zero dividend tax anyway because tax on dividends is a personal tax, and as I've mentioned earlier on, there are no personal taxes in the UAE. What about double tax treaties? Both countries have a significant amount of double tax treaties. Cyprus has more than 65, and the UAE, I would expect them to have more than 140 double tax treaties. Double tax treaties simply mean that you will not be taxed twice on the same profits. So if you belong to a group, or if you have branches in other jurisdictions, or if you are a person who is receiving income from multiple jurisdictions, you will not be double taxed in those jurisdictions and back in the UK, or back in Germany, or back in the US. It depends on whether or not that country, your country of tax residence, has a double tax treaty with UAE and Cyprus, which is the case as these two jurisdictions have a significant amount of double tax treaties. So when you arrive either in Cyprus or in the UAE from a third country, not from Europe, you need to apply for residency visas. This can be a permanent resident in Cyprus with an investment of 300,000 or a golden visa in the UAE. At the time of this video, I believe the requirement for the visa is similar to Cyprus. But you do not need to purchase property to work in these two countries. There are special visa requirements in Cyprus, which you can take advantage as a non-EU tax resident and of course come in Cyprus and work. Similarly, here in the UAE, if you set up a company, whether in any free zone like the ADGM, the IFC, or any other common popular free zones like IFZA, Maiden, you will be entitled to visa as long as you enter the country at least twice per year. The visa requirements and the details have been analyzed extensively in other videos, so watch our videos to understand about medical tests and the requirements that you need to do and how long you need to stay in the UAE to get your visa. Getting a visa in the UAE, however, is much faster than in Cyprus. In Cyprus, it takes more than 6 months, whilst in the UAE, it takes within 10 to 12 working days for your visa to be issued. This is very important. However, you will not make a decision whether or not to come in the UAE or to Cyprus based on the visa alone, because you will be granted with a visa but on whether or not it makes sense for you to be in Europe or in the UAE. And the taxes, as I have explained, can be discussed with us in a detailed phase. The most important thing for you is to fully understand what makes sense for you operationally, which jurisdiction really makes sense for you operationally, and that's where you need to focus. What else? You don't need a local partner in neither jurisdiction. Cyprus does not require you to have a local partner. It requires you to have local management and control. If you're going to relocate there, you will be the sole director and shareholder, and of course, company secretary. So the management and control rules will be met. Similarly, in the UAE, to obtain a visa, you need to be a director. Therefore, you will be a director of your own company and a shareholder. Again, the management and control rules apply. What about banking? Banking is quite different in these two jurisdictions, and this is something very important for you guys. So Cyprus has an amazing banking system. It takes a while for the bank account to open. I would say 2 to 3 working weeks, but once it's open, the online systems are amazing. They are awarded, irrespective of which bank institution you will use. On the other hand, in the UAE, again, it's going to take you the equivalent amount of time to set up a bank account, 2 to 3 working weeks, but their online banking systems are very basic. When I'm saying basic, I mean it takes forever to operate. They are slow. And one example, for instance, if you want to pay someone, you need a couple of days for the bank to add the payee in the online system, and then you can pay them. In Cyprus, everything is done automatically on the spot. You don't need to wait for the bank to do anything. Once you have your bank account and your credentials for the online banking, you are up and running. What else? Living costs, of course, the UAE is much more expensive than Cyprus. You can imagine 3 times more expensive than Cyprus, even though Cyprus is expensive in certain cities and certain areas. But if we are comparing apples with apples, so the best location in Cyprus with the best location in the UAE will be much more expensive. Similarly, the cheapest location in Cyprus, the cheapest decent location in Cyprus with the decent low quotation in the UAE, again, the UAE is expected to be higher. Of course, commuting in the UAE, again, is going to be more expensive. And this is not worth debating further because the UAE is expensive. However, if you know your way around the UAE, there is so much options with service providers, so much options with hotels, so much options with transportation that you can find bargains every time you come here. The UAE can tailor any taste. It can tailor the billionaires, the multimillionaires, the millionaires, and ordinary people. Multinational companies, big companies, mid-sized companies, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. It can cater for everything, so do your research, especially save your costs in restaurants and accommodations, because the more often you come here, you will see that it is expensive, but you can find average or decent prices in certain areas. You just need to know how to navigate in this amazing place. What else? Schooling, if you have children, of course, in Cyprus is much cheaper than the UAE. I would say in Cyprus it's going to cost you 6,000 to 8,000 euros. In the UAE, it's going to cost you 15,000 to 20,000 euros. And if you want your children to go to the best universities, it's going to cost you a couple of times more than that. UAE is the place of the elite. So if you're an elite, don't expect to pay anything comparable to Cyprus. You will be paying multiple times that you would pay here in Cyprus. Healthcare, both jurisdictions offer healthcare. It's private in the UAE, however, so you need to pay for a private medical insurance, which is much more expensive than in Cyprus. In Cyprus, if you receive dividends or if you receive a salary, you are obliged to pay 2.65% or 2.25%. It depends when you're watching this video and whether you are an employer or an employee. and you are entitled to free medical care. So for small companies, for instance, which come to Cyprus and they are getting the minimum salary, they might be contributing, let's say, 4 or 5% of their salary, maybe 40 euros a month or 500 euros a year on YESI, and they're entitled to free medical care, free surgeries, free scans for bones that are broken, or free medical tests from our national healthcare system. In the UAE, this is not the case. You need to be paying an expensive medical insurance so that you are covered accordingly for these tricky and expensive incidents. Company setup, of course, we've made many videos about it, but it's worth mentioning it here in this video. In Cyprus, it's going to cost you approximately 2,000 all-inclusive plus VAT to set up a company. In the UAE, it's going to cost you much more. That it could be 10,000 euros, it could be 12, 15,000 euros, or even more. Depends whether you will set up your company in a very prestigious free zone like the DIFC or the ADGM, or in a free zone that is less popular and cheaper, like, for instance, IFZA, Maiden, and 38 other jurisdictions similar to them. Cyprus is different in terms of the company creation, and we can create a different video. In Cyprus, there are two types of companies, the listed companies and the private companies. So 98% of the company formation is a limited company by shares. In the UAE, you have 40 free zones, so you need to understand where is best for you to set up your company. And you have two financial centers, which is the DIFC, Dubai International Finance Center, and of course the ADGM, Abu Dhabi Global Markets Finance Center in Abu Dhabi. So again, depending on what you're doing, your nationality, whether you are required to be regulated, then we can advise you on where to best set up your company. Which place is best for whom? Families, young families, especially Europeans. I would expect them to be happier in Cyprus than in the UAE. Having said that, young families from third countries, maybe they're happier in the UAE because the culture could be similar. Crypto traders, the UAE at the time appears to be more friendly for crypto traders than Cyprus, especially if the trading is personal. However, it will be taxed here in the UAE as it will be taxed in Cyprus. In the UAE, the tax is lower than Cyprus and could make sense for crypto traders as the profits are tremendous. Climate, UAE and Cyprus are similar, but the UAE is much hotter than Cyprus. You cannot live in the UAE during the summer period, which starts from June, July, August, and maybe September. So what most people do here in the UAE, they take their families and they leave the UAE, or usually the man stays here and works, while the wife with the children goes somewhere cooler. This is not the case in Cyprus. Cyprus is livable all year round without any issues. So again, this is something important for you to understand. What else? Lifestyle, I mean, there's no point analyzing lifestyle that much in this video. You know that the UAE is amazing. It has the best of the best restaurants, best skyscrapers, best theme parks, endless things to do, not only in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi as well. You have Ferrari World. You will never feel bored in this place, especially because there are lots of young professionals living here which bring their own vibe and energy into the country. Therefore, you can see people crossing across ropes from one skyscraper to another. You can see people playing paddle, tennis, doing hockey, doing all sorts of things indoors and outdoors. This is not the case in Cyprus. It's an island. Limassol has some nice prestigious restaurants and things to do, but in terms of volume you cannot compare them with the UAE. What else? AML regulations both apply in the UAE and in Cyprus. The UAE is becoming as strict as Cyprus, therefore I wouldn't expect to find any differences there. So these are similar. Some banking and corporate restrictions. If you set up a company in the UAE, you may have issues in Cyprus or in any other European country because the UAE is considered high risk, contrary to Cyprus companies. Therefore, if you have a UAE company and a UAE bank account, but it doesn't matter, either of or both together, you might find yourself having problems trading in Europe. So yes, this video is for UK and other internationals who are thinking of incorporating in the UAE or in Cyprus. But as I said earlier at the beginning, whether they will be trading in Cyprus, in Europe, or in third world countries like India, China, the Gulf, it's very important as there are restrictions. European banks, the Central Bank Authority, CBA, does not like seeing incomings from UAE banks. So you will have a problem there. Of course, we can assist you, so please drop us an email. And this is what we do on a weekly basis. Very important point. I'm going to make a video just for this point. What else? I'm brainstorming. Some myths and misconceptions. The UAE is expensive. There is tax in the UAE. And there is VAT, of course. There could be banking restrictions. Therefore, don't think that the UAE is a paradise. Similarly, Cyprus has VAT, has tax, but it's in the EU. You have the EU law protecting you. You have the common law in Cyprus, which is the Anglo-Saxon law, similar law that the UK set up in Cyprus before giving Cyprus its independence. Whilst in the UAE, you have the Sheikh, who is the ruler and the ultimate ruler for any court decisions. These are some differences that we need to analyze and explain to you because it's very important. Cyprus is modern, it's not outdated, everything is electronic and seamless, I would say. We are not 100% there, but I think Cyprus is 80 or 90% there. On the other hand, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and the whole of UAE is everything is automated and seamless, but the banking sector, which is key for businesses, especially companies who are moving lots of millions, and they could see that delays can take place. AML, as I've mentioned earlier on, is very important for both jurisdictions. Therefore, some myths of the past that you could create a company in the UAE and don't take care of it and trade and everything is fine is not the case anymore. And I forgot to mention this earlier on. In the UAE, like in Cyprus, companies are required to do submissions of tax returns, of audits, of audited financial statements every year. We have many videos about this, so check our YouTube channel. And this is the reason why banks are closing bank accounts if you do not keep your company up to date. Anyway, you are going to lose here in the UAE as in Cyprus. You are licensed to have the company open, which creates a lot of problems for you. So every year there are several renewals that need to take place. And of course, these are things we can assist you in our capacity as local UAE auditors, accountants, and tax experts. Dubai is sexy. Of course it's sexy. The lifestyle is amazing. Cyprus is not as sexy. It's important to mention it. Cyprus is more traditional. It's an island. But Limassol and other cities are buzzing from young professionals. There are huge companies and brokers, forex companies in Cyprus. Of course, you cannot compare how huge the companies are in Cyprus with how huge the companies are in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, where of course the sizes are, in the billions when you're talking about huge, whilst in Cyprus in the millions. This is Kyriakos Tramundanellis, a UK chartered accountant. I used to work in the UK as an audit principal. Then I moved to Cyprus. I'm a practicing auditor in Cyprus and now in the UAE. So feel free to contact us, send us any inquiries you might have, and I will be more than happy to assist you on whether or not Cyprus or the UK is best fit for you. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.